here with Miika Huttunen. You're the CEO of Slush. But before you sat in this chair, you have done something with your life. Can you tell us a little bit about your background, your education, and how did it all come about that you're the CEO of Slush?
Yeah, sure, and happy to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So I would say my life consists of three parts, or basically three things that I have done most of my life. I have always liked to learn things, so I have tried to do school well, and of course, like after school, like just actively learn new things. Second thing is that I used to do a lot of sports, and thirdly, I have been a huge computer nerd. So these are mostly the things that I have used my whole life around. Until upper secondary school, I thought that I would go or become maybe a diplomat or similar. So I was actually planning to apply to study like political history and such to the Helsinki University. But when I went to the military service, I kind of like also get excited about economics and financials and so on. So eventually I actually switched my plans and applied to the business school. And in the business school, I heard first kind of like what is like Slush and what is kind of like these entrepreneurship societies. I didn't know much, but somehow something dragged me to get closer to them and get just like super curious about them. And eventually I applied to become part of Slush as a volunteer. And since 2014 was like somehow involved ever since. And eventually like became a CEO. And I think it sounds straightforward, as it always is when you say these things. But I think my motto is like I always try to do something as well as possible. So there is kind of like opportunities open for next steps.
So your journey at Slush has been like a 7-year journey from a volunteer to the CEO.
Right.
Are there any sort of important lessons that you've learned during those 7 years?
One of the lessons that I learned during my first year was, and what was maybe so foundational that I wanted to continue all these years, was that I was part of the registration team. So giving a badge for a guest. Simple thing, but what I learned was that when you do even a simple thing with people who are incredibly ambitious and want to do that one simple thing really well, that becomes actually really exciting. So what we wanted to do was that we wanted to make our guests feel like kings and queens when they come to get that badge, because we knew that that's one of the first encounters when they meet somebody from Slush. And also we knew that these people are busy, so we want to make it happen extremely fast. I think second thing what I learned during this journey and how I eventually became CEO is just people really want to help. And when I learned that, I have just like utilized that just like all the time basically. So it's just sending an email to somebody who you admire, or just sending a text message or calling or asking and saying like, hey, hi, I'm Miika. I'm this years old. I'm studying this. I'm super curious to hear about you and learn about how have you done and how you have become you. And it's really surprising how often people have time.
We are talking about climate change and how to sort of prohibit it from progressing or sort of taking us further into the abyss. Do businesses want to tackle climate change more nowadays than before?
I honestly think that companies that are not somehow wired or designed in their business models or in how they work to tackle the climate change are not going to be around in 10 years. Even during this year, I think the change, like how companies think about like tackling climate or sustainability itself, and not just only in terms of like reversing climate change, but like also like sustainability as a whole, it's been quite a change because we take it seriously at Slush and we kind of like we're pretty demanding if you want to, for example, partner with us. So 5 years ago, there was some questions like, is this really necessary?
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like, can we do more?
That's wonderful to hear, and especially because in the news we know that especially young people are sort of getting stressed, fearing that we are expecting them to make the change, even though it's up to us to start making the change now and not waiting till like 20 years that now you can sort of clean up after us. There are loads of young entrepreneurs, especially sort of studying with us here at Economy and Youth TAT. How do you sort of recognize your own strengths, and what do you have to say to those young people who are still sort of trying to figure out their own strengths?
I can maybe like tell a story from the upper secondary school. And I was surrounded by people who kind of like were able to draw, were able to play like guitar, were able to sing, were able to act, and so on. And I kind of like, I felt I never had kind of like one of those things, but I always would love to have. One day I had a chance to be the host of our annual ball, so Vanhojen Tanssit.
Yeah.
And that was kind of like the first moment when I realized like this is actually pretty fun. And I actually felt that I was pretty good at this. And after that, I have tried to kind of like push myself to situations like this, where I can discuss, where I can like do speeches, where I can be the host. And I found out that actually this is one of the things I like. And it like led me to realize that in general, like as an entrepreneur or whenever you're working in a team, you don't have to know everything. You don't have to be skilled in everything. If you're starting a technology startup, you don't have to necessarily be the coder. You don't necessarily have to be the designer. You can be, for example, like what I think I will be. I think I'm like through that experience of the annual ball hosting, I can get people excited. I think I can articulate what we want to achieve pretty well. And I think I'm pretty good at building teams. And that's my role. Maybe one of the ways finding your own voice or finding your own skills is asking yourself, what is the thing you really like doing? Because that's the thing where you can build an edge. Something that you think maybe even during the night or during your free time. And that's how you become better than maybe somebody else. And I think the second thing that I realized that it takes also time to find those things. So my kind of like advice would be kind of like to try as many things possible, because you don't know what the thing will be for you. And pretty often also, as my last point, the things that you kind of like enjoy spending time on your free time will maybe become as not maybe as skill sets, but as a like industry or theme that you can build an edge. So finding your voice takes time, but it might be also sometimes closer than you think, where you're super good at.
And it's the passion that you put into your work is sort of resonates then with the other people.
Yeah.
Who then get excited. We talked about sustainability, but in Slush, in the event, how do you sort of, as a company and building the event, how do you take in account all the sustainability factors?
There are many ways how we do it. So first of all, if you think about the event itself, people from all around the world are traveling into one place, which is of course, from climate perspective, challenging. Therefore, we are like every single year committed to compensate every CO2 emissions that we do. So that's kind of like, we don't even discuss about it, we just do it. When it comes to how we kind of like build our program and design who we invite as a speaker, internally we want to first ensure that we have enough diverse team. And that kind of like helps us to have broader perspectives on things that has to be discussed on stages, and also who to invite, because those people we are role models to everybody who are following. At Slush, like all the like recycling things, and then these are kind of like done on steroids. So everything is like thought out. In the past, like we have had challenges with a few cases of harassment, so we're taking that also like extremely seriously. Like both when it comes to like how we design the venue, so there is like safe space in every corner, but also we have like rotating mediators around the event. So if these like awful things happen, so we are able to react right away. Obviously, we want to practice what we preach, and I think our way of changing the world when we partner with 100 organizations or invite 1,700 investors or over 3,000 startups is to be an example and like let them follow.
Well, my last question to you is, what is the next skill that you want to acquire in your career?
I would love to become better to improvise. I would say I'm pretty good when I know how should I prepare, what should I do, and I have had the time. But what if I'm just thrown to the spot and just have to do something? That's maybe one thing I would love to learn.
So that's drama school for you next.
Drama school, exactly.
Miika, thank you for coming today and talking to us, and all the best with the upcoming event.
Thank you.
Kiitos.
Kiitos.